Okay, so Dan, why karma credits? As a leading entrepreneur in the UK, you'd expect your first book to be something around business or your property entrepreneur framework, but you surprised us all with a book on karma credits. Tell us firstly why and what this is all about.
So when I sat down to write a book, I was thinking there's obviously strategically as an entrepreneur or anyone with a profile, you think about it's a great tool to raise your profile. And I was like, I haven't written a book before. I appreciate from watching you write a book how much of a commitment it is. And I was in a point in the business where I didn't really need to do it. And because of that, I didn't really want to do it. And I thought if I'm going to write a book, I'd rather have a quick soft run around the track, enjoy the process. And if something happens to me, there's one book I want to get out of me to leave behind, and that's karma credits because I've taught it. So that's karma credits. That's why I've done that first rather than how to make 100 million quid or whatever you might more expect of an entrepreneur. And what it is I on Property Entrepreneur, which is our training program where we train business in property, so entrepreneurs. People think it's all about making money, but a lot of it is actually about the softer skills, so life, stress management, and in this case, karma. And some people might know what karma is, some people might not. Karma is basically the logic, or we call it the universal law of wealth, health, and life by design. And what it means is that every action has a reaction, and everything you do either puts a positive energy out into the world or a negative energy. And then obviously what you experience moving forward is the net result of that. So if you do a good thing, good things will come back. If you do a bad thing, it's quite likely bad things will come back. And the law of karma is tuning into the self-awareness of everything you do, whether it's dropping a bit of litter in the bin and it falls on the floor and you don't go and pick it up, all the way to going out of your way to do something nice for somebody unexpectedly or putting yourself out to help others. In my experience, it's been a fundamental practice that's done me really well. And I've actually looked at a lot of my successes and at the end thought the odds were stacked well against me. And like, yes, I worked hard. Yes, I had lots of challenges, but equally the odds always seemed to just about swing in my favor to get where I wanted to be. And I genuinely believe that genuinely believe that karma credits is like an insurance policy that gives good people a advantage in times of challenge than others who perhaps look after themselves more than others.
And when did you start tuning into this for yourself? When did you think, oh, okay, this is because it's not a case of like, you're not got a running scorecard in your head, right? It's when did you start seeing the value of doing good, going the extra mile, random acts of kindness, etc.?
I think initially as a leader, so I've always been a leader. So I used to be like a leader in my athletics team, leader at school. I was like a leader of the social community. I organized all the discos. I've always been a leader in different capacities. I didn't actually know it until I was about 17. I didn't know I was a leader, but I was just the part I played in the group was helping people to get to where they wanted to get to, whatever that looked like.
Mm.
And I started then realizing that um if you get what you give in life, the more you give, the more you get, essentially. And I also realized like giving is like a gift. Like the dedication I put at the beginning of the book is a dedication to my parents for showing me that giving is the best gift. Like giving more than you take is the best gift. And I started to realize that quite young on when I was helping others, and it made me feel good. So it's not completely charitable. It made me feel good. And then that led me on to reading things like that, like about random acts of kindness. I read things about like the is it law of the universe? What do they talk about in The Secret?
Law.
Law of attraction. So the law of attraction then about visioning things coming in real. So it's like visioning stuff and it would come true. And then also reaping what you sow. And I found that if I started to do affirmations of believing I wanted to get somewhere and then also did good, it worked well. And up until about 15, 16, I was like, I did things that would probably judge as unfavorable now. So I'd say I was not the most pleasant person. I was like quite out for myself. Didn't put, it was me against the world, basically. I wanted to go and get everything I could. And I thought that was the way to get ahead. And then at some point, I just started realizing that actually, for you to be a success as a leader in a sports team or a business, for you to get the best results for yourself and your business, you actually need to invest more in your team than you do. You need to give more than you take and get behind them and lead from behind rather than from the front. And the easiest way to do that is to put the objectives and desires of other people ahead of your own. And then in turn, they achieve what they want. And actually, by default, you then get what you want. And it sort of played out like that. Then I started reading more spiritual stuff as I was older, probably about 5 years ago, maybe. Started getting into spiritual readings, like more Stoicism, Taoism, things about law of attraction and the power of the universe. And pulling all that together, it just made so much sense. I started to do it more consciously. And then the biggest thing is people think you might do it to increase your odds, or you might do it to reduce your bad luck and increase your good luck. But actually, my genuine objective of writing karma credits is so everyone can read it and then enjoy the world that they live in more than they do now. And this is that concept of understanding the world around you is completely malleable. You know, how your how people interact with you, the engagement you have when you're walking down the street. Do people ignore you and walk straight past, or do they smile and say hello? It's like the world around you is so malleable, and it's not until you understand karma credits that you can try it. And I'm not under any illusion. Initially, this will feel like the most uncomfortable thing anyone's ever done. Like some of it's easy, some of it's hard. Like asking somebody, well, we can talk about that in a minute, but some of it's easy, some of it's hard. But when you realize the benefits and the enjoyment and how malleable the world is around you, it becomes addictive and you can't not do it. Like there's things I physically can't do. And if I find myself not doing it, I have to go back and backtrack and fix it, because I know it's going to cost me a karma credit or not earn me one.
One thing I always tune into when I'm around you is how you always ask people how they are, or hope you're having a good day, or even just saying hello. And you do this very consciously, whether you're on the phone, whether we're chatting on the phone, or whether we're walking next to each other. You'll always stop, and it comes almost automatically to you. Whereas for me, I have to really consciously think about it, because I'm probably more in my head than I am externally. What's the first step for this, for someone who's probably in my position, where they might be walking around, but they're probably in their head thinking about things rather than how can they give to other people and add value in their day to day?
So if you think about the gobstopper, and we're all going to start in the middle, and then we're going to work our way out to the harder layers, that the first ones, because they're bigger, they're harder, they're more difficult. The easiest thing initially is to go work with your immediate network, so people you already know, like, and respect and trust, your partner, your wife, your husband, your friends, your family. And it's just starting to think, how do I add value to their day on the day to day? And you can go to any personal development book, like Dale Carnegie's a good one. You wouldn't ever think that's to do with spirituality and karma credits, but Dale Carnegie wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, and in there it says, if you use somebody's name, it's the most magical thing in the world. If you go out of your way to give someone a genuine compliment, we call them in karma credits, call them 1 minute moments. Just stopping in the middle of a day, someone's walking, someone in the office, or your partner's walking past, or we got jumped on this Zoom call. Oh, you've had your hair cut, you've had your beard done. You look so handsome. That's a great look. They're genuine compliments, and it's like, who doesn't like compliments? If you got on the Zoom call, I'd be like, Akash, why are we doing this at 3:00 in the afternoon? Like, some people just think about themselves. Like taxi drivers are a good one. You either get a really nice taxi driver or a really rude taxi driver, and neither of them are doing it consciously, or in more cases, the positive one's done it consciously, and the negative one's subconscious. But that's to strangers. But friends and family is a really easy, quick win. Going out your way to, like, one of the chapters in Karma Credits talks about, it's not the sentiment, it's not the size, it's the sentiment. And like Sav and I will go away with our parents maybe for a weekend. They've gone on holiday, invited us for a weekend. And at the end, we'll go to the market and buy like a really nice, cute little £1 card, and we'll both write like 2 really grateful sentences in it, little heart, little kiss, real heartfelt gift, and we'll give that to our parents, and they'll like get emotional and cry because they're so, they just appreciate the sentiment. Whereas if I'd have gone to the shop and bought them a £100 bottle of Moet Chandon, they've put, they either don't want or they've already had, or they're like, didn't need to do that. It's not necessary. So friends and family, little gifts, little compliments, and then you work your way out, your team, your suppliers, and then strangers. And that will change your life. Like when you crack the strangers, it will change your life. And I'll give some examples.
So, in typical Dan fashion, you create a framework out of this, and in the book, it's the energy framework. And each chapter is dedicated to one of those letters. Let's walk through this framework from a sort of bird's eye perspective. How does the energy framework work? Was it broken down to? Maybe just start with the E.
Cool. So the framework is, as any framework, the aim of the game is to consolidate thoughts and topics and then provide an easy way to remember and explain. So this is called energy. And the logic of energy is you have an energy, and there's a nice quote that says, when you walk into a room, people can feel your energy before you even speak. And it's like a complimentary term that's used for a person of like high virtue or high noble values. Somebody that's, the sort of people, the light either turns on or off. Does the light turn on when you walk into the room, or does it turn on when you walk out of the room? You got to figure out what person you are. And that's the whole energy concept, is you're going to carry an energy and people feel it. And if you don't believe me, if people who listen to this don't believe that there's a physical energy, next time you're with a positive person, just tune into how it makes you feel. We call them radiators. Somebody radiates energy and heat. That positive energy, feel how that makes you feel. And then also next time you're in an environment with a negative person, which we call a drain, that just drains all your energy, think about that, how that makes you feel. And then start to have the self-awareness that your behavior is not only impacting your own mood, it's impacting everybody around you. So that's the analogy. That's the acronym. The first is explaining so the first E is explain. And this is basically just explaining what karma credits are. And it's basically the universal law of wealth, health, and happiness. And I genuinely believe, from my own experience and from coaching and mentoring hundreds of other entrepreneurs over the years, the ones that go the ones that go the furthest and last the longest are the nicest people. So that's like a really, really key. I believe in this and I've seen it and it works day in, day out. It's the law of that. And karma is every action has a reaction. Good action, good karma, bad action, bad karma. And the concept that when you do the good things and you get the positive energy, in the book, we give it like a sound effect. So all of this is personal development. And you're not going to, if you read the book and then put it down, you tell your wife or your husband he's handsome or pretty later, and then you'll forget. If you use it as a workbook and just train yourself on it, you'll develop it up. And when you get the good karma, we say it makes a sound. So you do something nice, let someone out in traffic, you go cha-ching in your head, or you can say it out loud, especially if you're with your kids. Like, I'm going to work with a children's publisher at some point, hopefully, and have this converted for children to understand if they do something nice for the kids at school, kids drop the sock or a glove, they go and pick it up from them and give it to them. That's a big cha-ching, and they gain a karma credit. And then to explain the opposite is if you do something negative and you say something cruel, or you're sharp in your words, or you focus your life on transactions rather than relationships. All you focus on in this deal, how do I get what I want, rather than what's this relationship look like over 10 years rather than 10 minutes. That gives you a negative karma credit, and negative karma credit goes, And it's like, if you get something wrong, like you don't let someone out in traffic, you throw some litter in the bin walking down the street and it doesn't go in the bin, it falls on the floor. They're all negative karma credits. And the aim of the game is every day, week, month, year to accumulate a growing balance and a positive balance rather than a negative one. So that's the first chapter, which is explain. And that's what karma credits are.
Interesting. And the thing I think about, and I think you talked about this when you first explained this concept on, might be your podcast, is how do you avoid sort of like, oh, I'm going to do this because it's going to give you a point, or expecting, almost like the expectation of, oh, I'm sure I'm going to get something back, because that obviously doesn't work, right? And there's an element of learning to give or learning to do something without the expectation of receiving it again. But the
And
magic, if you do it in that way, it usually comes back to you in abundance. But we can get stuck in that scarcity mindset of, oh, I'm going to do this because I'll get something back. When often it doesn't really play out, does it?
and this is tough. Like one of the chapters talks about the law of reciprocity, and it's like the chapter before it makes it explicitly clear this needs to be done with no expectation. Like it needs to be done with no expectation of return. But then the next chapter is law of reciprocity, which basically means if you do something for somebody else, it's quite likely due to the law of reciprocity that you will get something back. So it's like the main thing is it's not the motion that you or the it's the sentiment that you'll choose to do it for. And this is the whole thing about karma credits as well. When we explain what it is, it's an internal and it's an external action, but it's actually an internal impact.
Yeah.
And whilst you might think, I'm doing this for myself, actually, if you go out and do something bad, even if it doesn't make you feel bad today, it will negatively impact your body. I go to Thai masseuses and they massage my neck and they say, you're a good person. I say, why is that? They say, because you're whatever's here, the chakras that run up your back and these muscles here. They say in bad people, these muscles get really clogged up. And then it's what can actually cause strokes. So when they massage people, they can tell physically whether somebody has been impacted internally by good energy and good karma or bad energy and bad karma. And it's not necessarily, it's not selfless. It's like I've got a charity that I run and I do it to help other people, but it makes me feel good. But I don't do it. It's not completely selfless and it's not completely charitable because it's got to be a win-win for everyone. But equally, it's not altruism, which is, that's a very difficult thing.
I remember someone was saying that giving, as selfless as it sounds, is actually quite selfish for many of us because we do it to feel good.
Well, the mantra of the opening chapter or the dedication in my book is the art of giving is the greatest gift. And it's a double entendre because it's like the art of giving to you is the greatest gift. I've given you a gift and you would be grateful that I've given you something. But equally, the practice of giving, I think Tony Robbins says giving is living. It's like, it's rewarding to give. And also when you think about abundancy, this is in one of the other chapters, chapter 3, where it talks about abundancy versus scarcity. A lot of us, especially as high performers, start off life in a scarcity mindset. It's me against the world. I want to be a multimillionaire. I'm going to make this sale. The aim of a negotiation is for me to win. And then eventually you get to a point of self-actualization where you transform and then you start to give. And all of this is in science. It's in maths. It's not all hocus pocus stuff. It's very clear the journey we go on. We take and we take and we take until we realize it's not giving us what we want. And then when we flip, we go to the top levels of consciousness, you give and you give and you give. And actually it's as rewarding for you as it is for others, but everyone's a winner. Whereas the alternative, nobody wins.
Well, one thing I've learned from you over the years, and it's come to light more and more in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, is, starting my day and even my week, I pretty much plan my week thinking, who can I help on my team to help grow RNT? Because firstly, I know I can't do it myself. But secondly, I know my value is best. I get the most value now from helping my team and helping them do amazing things. And it's something you've sort of hammered down to me over the last couple of years, but it's coming more and more sort of obvious and to light that's where I can give the most value.
And that's a really good example of where we can challenge it with, is it actually giving or is it altruistic? Because as a business owner or a manager, if we go in there with the mindset of, how can I get this person to get the best results for me? You end up in a very managerial environment. where it's all about accountability, holding them to account, performance management. Whereas if you come in as a leader and
Mm.
you've recruited the right people, and your only objective as a leader, and I've been saying this for a decade, is to create enough runway that talent will flow, it will flow through or up, it'll flow up your organization or out of your organization. And if you can create enough runway, get a team of champions, and then like the best coach in the world, stand there and genuinely all you're thinking is, how can I get you to be the best version of you?
Mm.
By default, you win. And
Yeah.
it's like when you're sitting there and you're thinking, I want you to do well here, everyone wins. When you're sitting there thinking, I want to get every squeeze of blood out of you, it's very transaction. It's transactions over relationships.
The runway analogy is amazing because it's. I mean, when we work with our members, it's like it's the journey map, right? It's how can we take you from cleaning the palette to the reward phase, and what's that journey look like? Because we know the reward phase, they're going to be their best version of themselves. It's effectively the same thing here, and it's probably the same thing in every aspect of life and every aspect of giving, isn't it? It's what's the journey look like? How can you help someone on their journey and paint the picture for them?
100%. And I'm not saying this is easy. Like, I'm a capitalist. I run businesses to make money, but I choose to do it in a way. I actually had a conversation with someone this morning about a situation, and I said, but if you approach it this way, then I guarantee you, even if it goes completely wrong, you won't fall out of anyone. And their feedback was, well, that's why you've never fallen out of anyone. And it's like, if you go into a deal focused on the deal and the transaction, the likelihood is it's going to be short term. It's short term thinking from short term people. Whereas if you can take people on the R&T journey, which is genuinely giving them the right thing at the right time because you want them to get it, even though it might be nice to talk to them about intuitive eating on week 1 to show them how smart we are, how smart you are, and all these things you've achieved. The definition of a leader and a mentor is not to teach people where they are, is to be able to come down to their level and get behind them rather than in front of them. And this stuff will change your life. It will change your relationships. It will change the way you lead, manage a team. And I guarantee, if you want to play the long game and not just get rich quick, be wealthy for a lifetime, these are just basic human traits that should be practiced by anyone in business or not.
Something Naval, who we both enjoy reading, he says is karma over a long period of time will always equal out over a long enough period of time. Karma will always equal out. I always
100%.
think it's a really interesting way of looking at it because you can do quick things to achieve quick results and hurt people in the process. But over a long enough period of time, those same people will get their own, so to speak.
And this is a really good example of where, because it'd be very easy for people to think, oh yeah, you're just writing this because it sounds nice, blah blah blah. But you're probably whatever, behind the scenes, probably going out dangling carrots and using whips and getting people to do all sorts. When you play the long game and you see what you've just seen, I remember, and I've shared this story with you before, I think, on a Sunday night, one of my senior team members who was running a big national team for me, who was on a 3-month notice period, got offered another job. He needed the money, got offered another job. And granted, it was probably like 10 or 20 grand more than he was getting at the minute. And he sent me an email on the Sunday night saying, and we were in a big growth phase. We're buying 3 companies. It was the worst time for him to leave for me. And he sent me notice saying, just so you know, I've accepted another job. It fills me with guilt, but I've got to do it for the money. And I'll be terminating my employment with immediate effect. I won't be coming to work tomorrow. And I remember sitting there at 4:00 on a Sunday afternoon. I thought, oh no, don't do that. I thought, mate, just do not do that. I didn't care about me. This is hand on heart on my mother's life. I didn't care about me. I didn't care about the business. My initial thought was that is going to come back. If it's in a week or a month or a year or a decade, that is going to come back and bite you in the ass right when you don't want to, because that is just not how you do it. Like, just don't do that. And it's like, hopefully that's a good way to illustrate the point of like, I was looking out for his best interest over my own, even though he's left me in the crap. So it's like, what happened?
What happened to him?
Well, I don't know, but I did get a message about 6 months later saying, it didn't work out as planned, let's say. But it's it's just so inevitable. And I can see it coming as well.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about it in the book called Leaving Breadcrumbs, right? I know I've probably butchered the framework and gone from all over the place
Yeah,
now.
let's jump around. It's much more fun.
But you talk about picking up the breadcrumbs or don't leave in breadcrumbs. Talk about that because that's something that really stuck with me, and I read that bit a few times. I heard you talk about it in the past, but I think you explained it really well here.
Yeah. So the last chapter is called Guilt, and it's
That was
it's
that was
about.
the chapter that I thought was the best one.
Did you?
Yeah,
Excellent. I'm glad I saved it for last then. Hopefully everyone gets to it. And the book makes a lot more sense just for everyone that's going to buy it and read it. It makes a lot more sense if you read it in order because it explains, it develops, sort of thing. But it also acknowledges the fact that we're not perfect. You know, I'm not sitting here. I alluded earlier, when I look at my younger self, especially my like teenage self, I would judge a lot of my characteristics and values unfavorably. And as we get older, just because we do karma credits, it doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean we don't upset people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we don't drop the ball or mishit it. But what it does is it gives you the awareness that when you do that, like you know that you can't leave it unscathed. Like if you've done something that's going to give you negative energy and a negative action for a negative reaction, and it's going to cost you karma credits rather than earn them, we call it leaving crumbs. So it's basically you left breadcrumbs behind you. You can leave them behind you and have a trail of breadcrumbs. So when I talked about karma is an external action, but an internal effect, all of that stuff, you might not think you're carrying it around, but the fact that you screwed over a business partner in 2012 and then you had an affair from your marriage and you went off with another man and it's been kept a secret, but the dust has settled, everyone's forgotten about it, and you think it's gone. That crumb is still there, and it means that you've got to look over your shoulder next time you go to that conference where you know your old business partner is going to be that you've screwed over. You're not going to enjoy the day. You're going to walk around looking over your shoulder, thinking, "Is she here? Like, is it? Are they there?" Or if you decide to have some sort of fling with someone at the local school group or whatever, for the next 5, 10, 15 years, you can't walk around that place with peace of mind and clean karma because you know that you've done those things. And they're quite extreme versions of dropping crumbs, which may be more difficult to right your wrongs on because some of them are going to be, you might feel like there's more damage done by trying to repair them than bury them. But the ones that we do every day, like speaking out of turn or saying something incorrectly, mishitting it. What you want to do is actually not pretend it didn't happen, not let your ego get better of you. Actually, take pride in the apology. So if you look at things like Alcoholics Anonymous, 12 steps. I don't know what step it is, like 7 or 8 is make amends. It's like go back to all those people that you've wronged and make amends. And it's not a completely selfless thing because it gives you as much value as it does them. And it's hard to do, but you do get to a point where you take pride in apology. If I get something wrong, I actually take pride in going there and saying, do you know what? I think I got this wrong, or think I mishit it, or I said that to you the other day and I didn't mean to, because it's balancing the book, it's neutralizing the energy, and it's just not leaving crumbs. You don't want to walk around guilty. I've had periods of guilt in my life, and nobody enjoys it. You don't want to upset anyone. You don't want to make people feel bad, even if you did it intentionally and deliberately. You don't want to leave crumbs behind you, and you want to clear them all up. And some people will be listening to this thinking, I know exactly what that is from 5, 6, 7 years ago. And when I wrote the book, I had one that was about 6 years old, and I thought, I'm teaching this stuff now. I need to go back and do it. And I did it. And I'd been carrying that weight around for 6 years. And once it was done, it was nothing. They were really grateful. The air was cleared. But for 6 or 7 years, that had always been in my head, consciously or subconsciously. And that's not good.
Well, I think that's probably the most actionable one well, I think, because that sort of stuff is what plagues people in their sleep at night, right? Or when you're alone. Those are the sorts of things you think about because there's an element of guilt, or there's things that you've done wrong that you need to correct. And I've had those experiences as well. And the closure typically comes from when you do go back and
make amends.
Yeah, make amends.
Equally, there's value in this as a business person or an entrepreneur or a high performer, because in most cases, like you and I have some of the best collaborative conversations because we speak honestly, we speak frankly, we don't take offense, and we just enable it. It facilitates a very high value environment to develop like collaboratively. And whereas it's very easy in the business world, especially with people that are perhaps not as developed in this stuff, where you go into a conversation and you're debating a point that's explicitly black and white, but I know it's black and white and that potentially they're wrong. They refuse to allow themselves and acknowledge that they're wrong. So they fight to the death to try and argue why they got it wrong or why it's not their fault or why whatever. And you're like, look, this is not going to get anyone anywhere. Why don't you just say, yeah, hands up. Do you know what? I mishit it. I read it wrong. I got it wrong. And it's like, cool. We're all human. We do that. We do things. Let's move on rather than waste all that energy and emotion trying to fight a thankless corner back in a decision or a mistake or whatever that is wrong. And you know it's wrong. Or some people don't know it's wrong and they're completely delusional and they're very hard to deal with. But, this is a maturity piece as much as it is anything else.
Do you think it's also a self-awareness piece? And if it is, how do you cultivate that to take action on some of these things? Because some people might be listening to this just checked out because they haven't. It's that person who's fighting the dead wrong. At what stage do you develop that self-awareness to make it something you tune into on a day-to-day basis?
What so for people listening that are listening to this thinking, oh, that's me, someone criticizes me and I go into defense mode.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's self-awareness. It's like, I remember hearing a quote a few years ago, which is amazing. It says you can either be rich or you can be right. Is it, you can either be rich. Yeah, you can either be rich or you can be right. And what it means is if you want to walk around in your life every day thinking you've got all the answers, you can be right all day, every day, but you're never going to get anywhere because you don't know everything. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. We don't know everything. We have to go and find it and get critique, criticism, feedback. Or you can be rich and you can walk around assuming you're wrong. And we talk about this in the book about assume you're wrong. If you go into every situation assuming you're wrong, you'll challenge yourself. You invite other people to challenge you. I've just come out of the back of about four weeks worth of feedback from 150 clients who pay us tens of thousands of pounds a year to be on our programs. And it's like, I'm the most, I would say I'm very, very developed in this place, but still reading 130 lots of feedback of people telling you where you've got stuff wrong, they don't enjoy it, you could be better. Anyone's going to find that a little bit, it's always, a little bit of that. But when you start to see it as, it's not failure, it's feedback. And you start to think that the more, when I talk about this model that most people won't be familiar of, but if you imagine an hourglass figure, for those that are watching, I'm sort of drawing it on the screen. For those that are listening, imagine a triangle at the top and a triangle at the bottom in like an hourglass shape. And you start off at the bottom, which is all about insecurities and fundamentals, which is I need to make money. I need to get my skill set. I need to win. And it's basically me against the world. You do that until you've got everything that you need and you want. And then you realize it's not everything in life. And then you develop into more giving. So it's like getting's the bottom half, giving's the top half. And the biggest part is self-awareness. And when you think about the context that we're talking, when you walk through life looking for compliments and all you want is someone to tell you how amazing you are and how good you are, you're in that bottom half. You're in that seeking, insecure, finding yourself space. And we all start there. I was there as well. And then you get to a point in your life where you realize that it's not about scarcity. It's not about fear. It's about abundance. And in Karma Credits terms, it's about love. And then you start to look for not pats on the back, but feedback rather than compliments. You're looking for critique. And as soon as you can run around, like people at PPN UK will tell you, I get embarrassed by, I'm not a big fan of compliments. Everyone loves compliments. So there's time and a place for it. But I'd rather get the critique. You and I, we could sit here for an hour complimenting each other, but both of us know we'd get more value out of 5 minutes giving each other a critique, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And we'd value it more. And it's just part of where your journey is. And you can fast track the journey, but you'll get more from listening than you will speaking.
Interesting. Just to give a bird's eye view of because you said the orders and the values in the order. So you said explain, Just go over NERGY, which I think we've done R and G, reciprocity and giving and guilt, right?
So explain is talking about what calm credits are. I think we've done a reasonable job of that. N is about being noble.
Yeah.
And this is about creating a fine set of qualities for yourself that you live and die by. And this is like, what are your values? So my values are playing the long game. So I like to look at relationships in decades rather than days. And my values are relationships over transactions. So if you wouldn't work with someone for 10 years, don't work with them for 10 minutes. And if I'm looking at a deal, like I remember my first development I did with a new business partner. He put the money in, I put the deal in, and we were due to make 200 grand profit. And it went a year over budget. It went 100 grand over budget. So we didn't make 200 grand. We only made 100 grand. Now it was my deal and my development, and he was going to get 50% of, and it was his money, and he was going to get 50% of what I basically promised him because we went over budget and over time. And if I was looking at the transaction, I'd have said, yeah, sound, you take 50 grand, I'll take 50 grand. And in layman's, and in the moment, you'd be like, well, I've done 2 years work. I deserve that 50 grand if you've got a sense of entitlement and you're playing the short game. Yeah. Whereas I thought, do you know what? I promised you 100 grand profit out of 200. We didn't make it. You can have my profit as well. And I've worked for 2 years for free. And then needless to say, 8 years later, we've been long-standing business partners. We've done tens of millions of pounds of deals together because I played the long game and did the relationship over the transaction. So it's figuring out, like, what are your values? What are your morals? What do you live and die by? Like, how you do one thing's how you do everything is another one of mine. Like, if I want to, whether it's putting rubbish in the bin or whatever, it's stuff like that, or do the right thing. You know, doing the right thing is so easy to say, so hard to do. But if I look at something, I'm always like, what is the right thing to do here? Well, the right thing to do is to refund that person's money, let them go, forget about the fact they've got a contract, their parents just died, or their wife's just gone bankrupt, whatever. The right thing is not to hold them to the contract, is to let them go. So N is noble, is about what are your fine personal qualities as an individual, and then just basically you nail your flag to it and live by it. E is all about experience, and this is how you experience the world around you and how you impact the experience that others have. And this is about what we talked about, random acts of kindness, having an abundancy mindset over a scarcity mindset. I came off a call just before this, and I just did a deal with somebody. And I said, oh yeah, just on top of this, just that, you know, if you want this, I'd like to offer you this. This is the thing, this is that, blah, blah, blah. And they turned around and said, yeah, but why would you do that? And I was like, to me, I was like, it's obvious to me. Like, if I was honest, I would have responded and said, because I'm a good person. Because, like, it doesn't cost me anything. It's going to give you loads of value. And we're now business partners. We're clients. Well, we're business partners. We're in it together. This is my opportunity to give you something you weren't expecting at no cost to me, but at huge value to you, which I could charge you £10,000 for. Like, it's immediate fears. Why would you do that? And I was like, because in my head, I'm like, why wouldn't I? Do you know what I mean? It's like, experience is about how do you have that abundance mindset where it's more about giving than taking rather than scarcity. Random acts of kindness, selfless acts, understanding the difference between personal and private. Like, some things should be done in like personally, so you should know it. So like a team member, you're going to give them a gift, they should know it's from you. Whereas other things are private. Like, if I go to a service station and they have a massaging chair, I'll get £1, write a little note and say, have a massage on me. And I'll just put it on there and I'll disappear. Sometimes I'll hide behind like the wall to see when somebody gets it. But I don't do it to stand there and tell them this is from me. And I don't take a picture of it and put it on Facebook. It's completely private. And yeah, that's about experience sort of side of things. And then finally is with that, the experience it gives you and the experience it gives others is there's time and a place for gifts. You know, I've had times when I've bought people diamond jewelry and Rolexes as gifts, and sometimes that's suitable. But 8 times out of 10, it's more the sentiment than the size. For those who are watching the video of Akash, behind me is my bookcase. And over the last 10 years, I've been bought all sorts of gifts, champagne, jewelry, all sorts. But the only thing that I actually care about is my thank you cards, and they're all my thank you cards from the last decade, and they mean like so much more to me than if someone bought me a Ferrari or whatever and stuck it on the drive. And it's like it's all about the sentiment over the size. It's if you can go out of your way to a nice handwritten letter is often much better than a 10 grand bonus. That's the experience. Recognize is chapter 4, and this is about what we talked about is don't think, especially with when you've got a team or a family or a partner, don't think it's their obligation to do what you want them to do. It's I feel grateful for anyone doing anything. Like I never, whether it's a waitress in a restaurant, I feel like they're serving me, and one of my values is service. I never feel like I'm a paying client. I deserve this. I feel like you're spending your time serving me. Like yeah, it's going out of your way to thank them. So recognize is thanking the lady at the checkout, taking a minute to ask her how her day's going, saying thank you, being polite, holding the door open for people, not having a sense of entitlement, but having a sense of obligation to thank other people. And then finally is guilt is obviously you make your bed, you lie in it. If when you get things wrong, we all get it wrong. You can right your wrongs. And I think I genuinely find pride and pleasure in apology. And also I know that it means I don't walk around with that cloud over my head. So that's the final one is why, which is your life, which is all about what I said about like cha-ching, start saying cha-ching. And a few of our property entrepreneurs on Property Entrepreneur taught their kids it. And they were doing little videos on Facebook. So the kid was saying, said like, what do we get if we do something good at school? Or we're nice to someone, and the kid goes cha-ching. I said, what happens if we say something nasty to someone and they're like, and that's like building it into your life. So same as anything, if you go to the gym once, you're going to get very few results. But if you go to the gym every day for four to 6 weeks, you'll get the basics. If you do it for 4 to 6 months, you'll get really good at it. If you do it for a lifetime, I've taken I've been doing karma credits for as long as I can remember. And I've taken my own practice to another level in writing the book because it just reminds me of all the things I need to do. And it's like, if you put it all into your life, you're absolutely, you're winning all day long.
Amazing. So Dan, the book is out imminently. Tell us where people can grab a copy and enter. I believe you have a pre-order competition going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do so the launch day is going to be the 7th of October, and we're going to do pre-orders on Amazon. So if you buy your book up to and including the 7th of October, what we're going to be doing is, depending how many you buy, and there'll be some mail outs going out soon. So if you join our mail out by going to either my social media profile, go to on Instagram, property entrepreneur _ or Facebook, Dan Hill, add me on there and follow me on there. You'll see the giveaways. Equally, whether you're into business or property, or you just want to get the opportunity to get some bonuses and a giveaway, go to www.property-entrepreneur.co.uk. And if you just add your details to the mailing list, download one of the documents, you'll be on our mailing list then. And up to and including the 7th of October, if you buy one copy, we'll be entering you into a draw to not only be one of the first people to get the book, but also get some surprise bonuses. So even if you just want one copy, do that. And equally join the mailing list because we'll be doing some huge giveaways for people who buy multiple copies. And that'll be able to help you, your friends, your family, your kids. And we want to make sure it's a win-win. So we'll be congratulating you and awarding you accordingly with that.
Fantastic. Well, I've read the pre-draft copy. I don't know what stage of editing it's in, but I saw you post something the other day where it was looking very polished. So I think I must have got the pre-draft. But it was a very good read, and I think the gold is always in the application ultimately. So if you're listening to this, you're getting a copy of the book, just make sure you apply all the principles in order to actually get something out of it. Because the worst thing to do is, when it comes to a book like this, you don't want to read it to feel good and then actually not do anything about it. So the gold is all in the implementation and the action of it, and you can reap all the rewards that may come your way. Any final sentiments for Karma Credits?
I think whilst it is a practice about giving, it is an acknowledgement and recognition that it is a win-win. if it was completely one-sided, if working for charities was completely one-sided voluntarily, nobody would do it. It's got to be a win-win. And genuinely, like when you read this book and you start putting it into practice, start off with the basics, then move up, and it'll just become a way of life. And I guarantee you, and if you do this and it doesn't physically happen, I will send it in and I'll refund your money twice over plus your postage. If you put this into your life, I guarantee you will walk around your normal day-to-day life in the same village you've lived for your whole life, go to the same shops you've been going to for a decade. I guarantee your sense of fulfillment, happiness, positive energy from doing the same things you've always done will fundamentally change. And the world around you is so malleable. Put this stuff into practice and it will increase the quality and enjoyment of your life just in basic day-to-day so much more. And also, it's got to be done without the expectation of return, but the law of reciprocity you will never understand until you've experienced how significant the returns from this are. So yeah, thank you very much for having me on the podcast, Akash. And best luck to everybody getting a copy of Karma Credits. And I hope you get as much value from reading it as I did in practicing it, learning it, and building it out and writing it.